All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope that you enjoy.
Join the KissFAQ YouTube channel. Member perks include exclusive song story demo bites, songs of the moment with contextual introductions, document and merchandise dives, KissFAQ board topic reaction videos, early access to channel content, and hopefully lots more. Click the join button on the KissFAQ YouTube channel or follow this link. All right, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill. I'm riding solo today. Just got off a plane from London, so I feel like I just walked from London. And I'm very happy to be joined by John Humphrey, drummer with Seether, and also, more importantly, in the context of this conversation, no offense, a massive Kiss collector. John, good to have you on the show finally after many years.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So you're well known in the Kiss collector community as a Kiss collector. And before we get into talking Kiss collections, for anyone who isn't aware of you, just give a little bit of your background of how you became a Kiss fan and your entry point into this wild and crazy world that we inhabit.
Yeah, Kiss, for good or bad, is the entire reason I do what I do for a living. The band was my gateway band into music, into rock and roll. And I was just that perfect age, late 70s. I remember the movie being on TV. In fact, my grandma had a job on weekends at a convenience store, and she would sneak me packs of Rocky and Kiss bubblegum cards. So I had the Donruss bubblegum cards before I had even a record. So I obviously was just that right age. It was the sweet spot, and I fell in love with the band. And Kiss Alive was my first record. And, when I finally got into music and was playing drums, first thing I did, of course, was learn Kiss songs and playing along to Peter Criss. And it's just, it's the reason I do what I do. And I've loved that band. I followed them through thick and thin in the early 80s when all my buddies, of course, I loved Judas Priest and AC/DC and Van Halen like everyone else did, but I stuck by Kiss, through, things like The Elder when Creatures and Eric joined. I loved Creatures. And that was my first concert, actually, was seeing the Creatures tour. I didn't get to see the original band in the quote unquote heyday. So Creatures of the Night was the first tour I got to see, which was amazing for me. And Kiss was the whole reason this whole crazy journey began. And then at heart, I'm a collector too, I guess. And initially it started with vinyl. That's the way and the format that I listened to Kiss music starting out. And as you can see behind me, I'm very much a vinyl guy, gotten back into it with a passion in the last few years. And when I was able to, I went back and recollected all that Aucoin era stuff, because as a kid, we either couldn't afford it or whatever reason, I didn't have it at the time. So when I was able to, I went back and collected all that stuff that I always wanted to have, and curated a pretty good collection, I think.
So going back to that gateway, was there no music in your life that you were kind of into before that eureka moment of Kiss? So you didn't have any alternative music in your life prior?
I would think, my mom played a lot of music when I was a kid, and she loved, sort of that early 70s soft rock slash folk. I remember Jim Croce and Simon and Garfunkel were the kind of things my mom played a lot as a kid. So, of course, I remember that. And then oddly enough, it's a great question. I don't know if I saw him on TV or what it was, but I really loved Elvis Presley. Kind of odd. My mom's more of a Beatles generation kind of thing, but I loved Elvis Presley. So that was sort of, I was pretty little. That was the music. But again, I was the perfect age for Kiss. And when Kiss came along, it was all over with.
So once you'd crossed over that threshold into Kiss land, what was it like in your peer group? where did Kiss sit in your age group at the time you became a fan? Were you an outsider because you liked Kiss and the other guys like Aerosmith or Nugent or any of the other groups in the late 70s? Or were you right at home and just one of the army from the get-go?
Yeah, so I had buddies that were in the Kiss Army that had the bubblegum cards, had the records. They were actually telling me, I'll never forget, my aunt took me and my brother to the record store to get the first Kiss record I was going to get for me. My buddy's Dynasty was out at the time, to kind of give you an idea of where we are chronologically. And what album should I get? Which would be the first one? My brother got Kiss Alive 2, and I got Kiss Alive. We, of course, traded and shared for the longest time until I was able to finally go and get more of the records. But Kiss Alive was my first one. And so, yeah, I had buddies that were there. And I was so jealous. They went to go see the Dynasty show. I live here in Oklahoma. They played Norman, Oklahoma in '79. Begged my parents to go. For whatever reason, I didn't go. I had friends that went. But of course, my addiction to Kiss was in full swing. And so when, Unmasked came along, I got it when it came out, and Elder when it came out, and Creatures. And of course, I loved Priest and everything that was happening in the early 80s, Def Leppard, everything that came along. So I was into that too, but I was sticking by Kiss. I wore the Elder out. I loved that album. I played it, stuck by them. I remember getting the 16 magazine, showing the new outfits, the new look, and all my buddies are, yeah, they've definitely moved on. What are you doing? The Elder? What? I don't get it. I don't get it. But I was sticking by my band for sure.
Did you stick by them the whole time, or was there ever a period in their history that you kind of sidelined them as something else became more important? Or are you 100% completely committed to the Kiss Army?
In full honest disclosure, what really upset me more than anything was taking the makeup off. So I remember watching MTV and stayed up late. It was a Sunday night to see the coming out, the taking the makeup off, the unmasking on MTV, which was a big deal for me because I had seen Creatures. So I wanted, I knew Vinny and Eric. And so it was a big deal to me. I didn't quite fully understand what was going on. They were, of course, revealing themselves. And then on comes a new video. And I'm thinking, as they're walking right through the alley, the beginning shot of Lick It Up before they pan up to the band, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to have their makeup right, and it pans up. They don't have their makeup. I was so upset. What did they do? What are they doing? I, of course, those shows came through Oklahoma. I have to admit, I did go see them all through the 80s, but they weren't my number one band kind of through that era, unfortunately. A lot of great music looking back. I loved Asylum and that era, but I was really upset that they took the makeup off.
So going back to the late 70s, I mean, you've got a great gateway into the band with being that age. At the tail end of the 70s, there's a waterfall of merchandise. Kiss is everywhere.
Yeah.
They're on TV, they're in comic books, they're in magazines on a weekly basis.
Right.
When do you make that first step into starting to not just buy an item, but to collect? When do you see that happening to you as that young fan to be bitten by the bug?
Yeah, I did like most of us did. I wish I could tell you that I had this great forethought of this is going to be collectible one day, so I'm going to keep it pristine and take care of it and keep it over here. No, I wore out the Creatures tour book. The Evolution of Kiss book in Alive 2, I took it apart and hung it on the wall. The Dynasty poster went on the wall, the Unmasked poster. So to be honest, it wasn't until I was in my 20s and conventions and record shows started happening. I sort of worked in record stores in high school. I started picking up stuff and recollecting. I had to, because everything as a kid, I either hung on my walls or used or whatever. But I wasn't and didn't get like the dolls and a lot of the merchandise back then for whatever reason. A lot of it, I think, just my parents, we just maybe couldn't afford it or whatever. So It wasn't until I was an adult that I went back and then basically recollected all that stuff. So the earliest stuff I had, like I said, were the bubblegum cards and my Creatures tour book and some posters. And that's kind of where it started. But mostly it was about the music and the vinyl initially. And then in the late 80s, 90s, and conventions started coming along. and the sort of collector's world started coming on. eBay came along. I remember getting the Music Life magazine and seeing an ad for the Originals 2. I didn't know what the Originals, I was like, what is this? Is this real? And I remember going through all of that in real time. And so it wasn't until eBay and kind of a little bit later and learning about some of these things that I went back and started collecting as a collector.
Can you look back on your collecting life as that one item that you did buy later on that really establishes you as afflicted with collecting? The item that you could say, this got me started down that path. This is the one item that I became a serious focused collector when I got this item.
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think it would be when I was able to finally get a full set of the dolls, the Mego dolls, untouched and still in the boxes and the clear bands around, Ace and Peter, the whole brand new in the box. It was a store in Dallas, a great music store that's gone now. This would have been about 95, 96. And went in there and he had the full set. He had the set of dolls and he had a misprint Alive 2. And he knew I was a Kiss fan, and he called me up, and I went to Dallas, and he had held those items for me, and we worked out a deal. So it was those dolls that set me off back into the Acoin stuff, and that misprint Alive 2 that really
Oh,
got it all rolling again. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was like that with the Originals too for me. And I loved how you said how you didn't know if it was real,
Right.
because I had that same discussion with people in the early 90s when I first learned about it. I'm like, is this real, or is it, just a phantom? And it took
Yeah.
many years to later track down a part. How difficult was it, I guess in Oklahoma, were you still there in the early 90s when you started collecting? And how difficult was it in your location to be a collector?
Yes, I mean, we had record shows that came through, and I saw, a few items. Got big into the bootleg VHS world, right? The concerts, the shows. I loved having those. I loved watching those old concerts, and just was, you know, blown away by finally being able to see. I didn't live in real time. Well, I was alive, but I wasn't able to see Mike Douglas or the ABC in concert or all these things. So it was really first the bootleg concerts and the music and those conventions. But it really wasn't until eBay for me, and with the exception maybe of that store in Dallas, where I could finally get my hands or start to look at, collectible, decent grade sort of items from the 70s. And one of the first major purchases, and this is before PayPal, this is early eBay, is I bought a refurbished pinball machine. And it
Oh,
was the
wow.
whole deal, right? I mean, I sent him a money order hoping that it would show up. He had done a great job of repainting the cabinet. He had replaced some things, but I hooked it all up and it didn't work. And I had to scramble and find a guy in Oklahoma City who could repair, old pinball machines, which he did, and he got it up and running. And, I loved that thing, ever since a kid looking at the merch order form of Dynasty. Go to your nearest arcade to play the pinball machine. Imagine finally being able to have one. That was a big deal, but that was in the early days of eBay. So again, it was really eBay that kind of brought the world to me as far as, oh, wow. So there's this and there's that, and I can get that. And really, and luckily for the most part, in the Wild West of early eBay, I had pretty good experiences. I don't have any really major stories of being ripped off or anything crazy like that.
No, I think the early days of eBay should come with violin music as we look back on it, because
Yeah.
it was a grand time of discoveries and the unexpected and some of the things that would pop up on there. I was doing it since 1997. As a collector, how do you think of yourself? Are you a generalist? You're interested in everything, or are you an all coin purist, a vinyl guy? How do you kind of split all these different areas of collecting Kiss into what works for you? What interests you?
Oh, I was pretty open to honestly what was in the budget and just kind of what came across, you know, into my world, into my purview. So I do love the Acoin stuff. So once I started collecting a few items, I felt like I really wanted to get in there and get everything that I could possibly from that time period, as far as the merchandise and the Viewmasters and, the show beam and, everything sort of quote unquote a coin. Then, of course, the Australian 1980 tour, a coin era stuff. So I loved doing that. Like I said, I went to the shows in the 80s. There wasn't a ton of merch, but, I'm not like, wouldn't define myself something like John 5, where he only does a specific era. I did have some 80s stuff I would collect as well. And I have, or had a couple of small costume pieces, but nothing major that I ever really encountered. Um, but I loved the Kiss Army kits and the press kits. That really became a thing for me. And then, of course, as we all know, uh, there was really no rhyme or reason to a particular kit. Some items would be included, some would be, different to another. So I would collect a kit and then try to find all those miscellaneous items that were from that era and combine them all, So I loved going down those sort of rabbit holes. I loved press kits the same way. And so I was all about completing the Army kits and press kits. So that sort of became a thing for me too. And then, yeah, like you mentioned, vinyl has always been a thing, and I love vinyl related items. So that stuff actually I've kept. So I'm big into the 70s Japanese pressings. So any of those point of sale purchase posters and things and items that came with the vinyl, I have kept for now. I'm still keeping vinyl and sort of vinyl, quote unquote, vinyl related items, but all the memorabilia and stuff is the stuff that'll be in this auction.
Yeah, so that's a great segue into Backstage Auctions, who I have used in the past who are an incredibly fantastic company to work with, both as a buyer and a seller of collections. What makes you decide at this point in your life that it's time to make a change and pass some things on, perhaps for other people to have an opportunity to add to their collection? It's a very big decision for a Kiss collector. It's a painful one, often one that requires much thought,
Yeah.
And suffering. What's led you down this path, John?
Well, like I just said, I think what eased a bit of the pain is it's not everything, right? I'm still, as you can see, my passion is kind of full circle journey back to where it all started for me, which is vinyl. That's the format I listened to the band. That's how I got into the band. And so I kind of eased the pain with keeping, like I said, those items that are quote unquote vinyl related, and just made the decision to kind of make that the mark or cutoff. And then I just felt it was time. My kids are both musicians. They love music. They love and appreciate Kiss, but they don't have that connection to the memorabilia and the 70s and those sort of items that were part of my childhood, part of, once I was able to afford them to go back and get that, they don't have that sort of emotional connection. And I just felt, it's funny. I was telling a guy, somebody put on a post sometime, I don't know, and I'm sort of generalizing or it's kind of out of context, but he said, some collectors think they're leaving their kids a collection worth a fortune. What you're leaving them is actually a burden. Do yourself a favor, sell your collection and buy them gold, And now I'm not selling the collection to go buy gold, but it wasn't lost on me, sort of kind of the sentiment behind that. And I just felt like if something were to happen to me tomorrow, my kids, my family, my wife would be, I don't know, what is this? What am I going to do? Who do I call? What do we do? So I just felt it was time. It kind of made sense. And my passion in vinyl collecting, that still kind of fills that sort of addictive personality I have as far as collecting, and kind of gives me the thrill that collecting has always done. And I still get that through collecting vinyl, but the memorabilia, I just felt it was time. And plus, 4,000 records takes a lot of space too. So you have to kind of make a decision displaying things, and I couldn't display everything, to be honest. A lot of it was kind of stored away, and I just felt it needed to move on to some great homes. Will be appreciated. It'll be out hopefully on display, and other people can enjoy it.
Yeah, one thing that struck me looking through the collection is it encompasses a very broad area of things that interested me back in the day. I became more of a hunter. Once I had the kill, I didn't know what to do with it. It's like I'm sitting there looking at it in a box. I'm like, well, now what?
Right.
But it takes a lot of time to build up those press kits in particular.
Yeah.
And that was what immediately caught my eye. Looking through those press kits, you've got everything pretty much from the first one up through Reunion. And that's kind of where my interest level stops personally. So
Right.
apologies. Um, what was the toughest one of the press kits for you to find? And the one of the press kits, I guess, that's had the most variance, because I've seen elder press kits with all sorts of stuff in them.
Right.
I've seen, Dressed to Kill and Hotter Than Hell ones have also had a bit of variance, just because of the nature of the times in which those albums, um, came out. But which press kit is it that you got it, you received it, you held it up, it glowed in light, and you were like hearing the angels sing that you finally had it in your possession?
Yeah, it was the first album press kit, and it was, and proudly I put it together. So when I got it, it came with the folder, three of the individual shots, the band photo, the bio, and the other things. So I had to find at a later date separately the Gene photo, the mailer, the envelope that it came in, and I think the newsletter that that I was able to get. So even though I had a huge, chunk of it, I didn't have it complete. But once I was able to find the mailer and eventually the gene photo and complete that, I had already, I believe at that time, had the Hotter Than Hell and Dressed to Kill press kits, but then I was all about finding the mailers for those too. So I found those separately as well. So it was those first three press kits. I love those, man. Those were the three toughest ones to let go. I just love the yellow and black Dressed to Kill. I just love the color. Those three press kits are just works of art to me, man. I just love those. And those were a lot of fun putting together. And like the Dress to Kill, the yellow sticker, or the yellow border sticker that kind of is a bonus. I had to find that separate. I mean, it would be amazing. I'd run across an auction or something on Facebook where a guy just happened to have the piece I was looking for and a couple of other items. So I was just, sometimes I would luck into things and like, I can't believe it. I'm going to be able to put this together and finish it off. This is great.
Yeah, you know what? Casablanca, for a record label that didn't have much money, sure did some really nice press kits for Hotter Than Hell
Oh,
and
yeah.
Dressed to Kill. They were broke at that time, and
I
look at those
know.
things. They're absolutely fantastic.
I love
Um,
those.
another item that really jumped out at me was the Eddie Solon set list from the Academy of Music 1973.
Yeah.
Is that the oldest Kiss item in your collection? And just tell us a little bit about the framing of that. Did you do the framing, get that all framed up,
I
or did
did.
that
I
come
had
as a
that custom
pre-constructed piece?
framed. Yeah, so the actual it's two-sided. So I had a really nice copy of the backside. So the first side is the input list for Eddie and the channels for the show where he had
Right.
put the mics. And then the backside is the set list and with Baby Let Me Go even. So I photoed or had that scanned and then put so that you could see both sides in that display. And then his backstage pass, the Howard Stern Academy backstage pass, Kiss sort of in there in Sharpie. That
Right.
was his backstage pass from that. So yeah, that was amazing to get. And so I cut the piece that came out of the Kiss Alive Forever, which talks about the technical issues with that show. And it's pretty interesting to correlate it with his input list because you can see where a mic had gone out and he had moved the channel like Peter's drum to Gene's mic. I forget which one it is, but he scratches out the input list and then shows the technical difficulties that were going on. You can literally see it there on his channel input list. It's incredible and such a for a Kiss fan, and for the band, it was just such a landmark show we all know about now. It's just incredible sort of piece of history.
Oh, hey, you're still here, watching or listening. Why don't you hit that subscribe button or click the like one? And if you want even more, click on the join button on YouTube. Thanks for your support. Well, it's their professional coming out show. I mean,
Yeah.
you've also got some of Eddie's photos from Ace's 1978 solo album sessions. What made you pick up an item like that in the first place? I'm pigeonholing you as a drummer.
I love that album, and very good, Julian. Anton Fig, man, I just rip it out was something I worked on and tried to master and finally, that great sort of drum centerpiece of that song. And when those photos came along and it showed Anton's kit set up in the foyer of that mansion up on the stairwell and getting those sounds, and it's kind of a hodgepodge kit sort of put together. I mean, it's nothing, everybody, drummers love to talk about. I've got the maple shell, the birch kit, 6-ply, and it's brand new. And it it's like concert toms. They don't have bottom heads, which is not always sonically the best, but he just kills because it doesn't matter about the drums a lot of times. It just matters about the player and what the guy's got in his hands. And Anton, of course, kills on that album. I love it as a drummer. And when I saw those photos, I'm like, I've got to have this just for that. And when I finally was able to meet Anton at a Nashville drum show, I told him about that I had those photos and had a picture made with him. And yeah, I'm just a fan of that album, and of course Anton. So that was just sort of, again, happenstance that I ran into a collector or somebody who had those photos. I'm like, I'd love to have those. So yeah,
Now, I don't see a lot of instruments in the auction, but I do see a bell.
yes, yeah. The Firehouse bell, the infamous bell. So I had another fellow collector connect me with a gentleman who had a rehearsal space in New York where Kiss used to rehearse in the mid-'70s, along with a lot of other bands. He mentions in his letter Earth, Wind, and Fire and other bands of the era. And the story supposedly goes, the crew loading out, slightly damaged the floor or stair, I don't know, moving the huge road cases around, and sort of gifted, I guess, or left these items with, I don't know why. Oh, thanks, man. I've always wanted a fire extinguisher and a bell. But anyway, he had these things for 40 years, and I just kind of threw him an offer. And yeah, it's amazing. I didn't, again, seek out to be, I want the Firehouse related items sort of, curated collection, but it just sort of happened. And it's amazing to see. And of course, as we all know, Paul on ABC's In Concert goes over and rings that thing for Firehouse, and it's really cool. And it also came with that fire extinguisher, which is in a separate lot, and it has the very first Kiss sticker stuck on this fire extinguisher, which I assume would have been, of course, like on the side of the stage or something during the, any unforeseen events and required a fire extinguisher to be used. But it's really cool. It has that early silver logo, Kiss logo
Right.
sticker on it, which was kind of neat. That super old item, sticker on there,
You've used that phrase, many a collector has held out their arms to their significant other. It just sort of happened. Yeah, it's great when these things just kind of come into your hands, because
Yeah.
who goes out looking for, you know what, I'm going to buy a fire extinguisher? I
Yeah.
mean, no sane conversation starts like that, does it?
No. And it's funny. I tell the story. This friend called me about those items and contacting that guy, and at the same time had the brass embossing plates for the inside of Double Platinum. So he had the plates for the faces, that were used for the artwork and logos for the embossment of that cover. Um, and I actually wanted those more, funny enough. So I'm like, we were moving to a new house. I'll never forget the weekend. And he had sent me a couple of emails. I was late to respond. And I actually at first went, I'd love those Double Platinum. That's awesome, man. Oh, I'm sorry. He's already sold those. But this other guy still has this bell and fire. Would you be, okay, yeah, sure. Please connect me. But funny enough, both were offered at the same time.
That's fantastic. You've got the Cadillac yearbook. Obviously, that's critically important this year, isn't it?
Yeah.
With the 50th anniversary of the Kiss Army coming up, and of course, the
Wow.
anniversary of both Alive and the Cadillac visit. But you've got reels of reels. Have you played all of those? Or were they just kept in the box? Did you ever, get the itch to see if you could escape from oxide shedding and get away with playing one?
I never did. I didn't play any of the official ones. The only one I had professionally transferred was the Ace, which is from the Eddie Kramer collection, which had and this was kind of before it's now out on YouTube and the internet, which was, I wanted so desperately to hear the instrumental track for All for Nothing, and
Mhm.
I hadn't heard it yet, so I was so excited to have that transferred and to have that done. But that's the only one, and that was done professionally. Aside from that, no, I never actually played those others.
Right, and that reel is really cool because that is the one known outtake from Ace's solo album, and I
Yeah.
believe it's got two instrumentals takes of that plus "I'm in Need of Love" is
Yes,
the other one off the top of my head.
that's
So
right.
that's going to be a very cool collectible for someone who gets that reel. What are some of the items that you have in this auction that you didn't put them in the auction until the very last minute because you were beating yourself up inside about putting them in?
I mean, it runs the gamut. I mean, it was everything at once. There wasn't really some of this I'm going to hold back. No, wait, I'll do it. It's funny. Again, I was looking through some of the items before we got onto this call, and um, I was joking with my wife. I'm like, I'm very proud. I think looking at everything, Julian. I mean, Jacques done a great job of photographing everything, his team, and putting everything together into lots. It looks beautiful. He sent me a flash drive with all the photos. I think maybe I'd like to have a book of it at some point, but or make a book of it at some point. But I'm kind of proud of what I've curated. I think it looks really good. It even has a lot of my original VHS tapes of those when I was talking just a moment ago about going to these record shows and getting these bootleg concerts and TV shows. It literally has my handwritten Kiss logos and things that I did. That's where it all started for me. And I honestly had forgotten that that was kind of in some of the stuff that I sent him, but he's done a great job. And I was just, it's part of my life. So it's kind of amazing to see a lot like something as simple as VHS tapes of those were the first time that I saw all those performances. I wore them out. I played them over and over to something as meaningful as the bell or fire extinguisher or some of the key pieces we're talking about now. But something like that really, yeah, it kind of blew me away because it's an emotional thing too. So, like I said, I joke about would it be odd to bid and try to win back the stuff that I'm selling, but of course I won't do that. But um,
You say that now. Do you think regrets are a possibility for the collector? Collector sale regret. Have you ever sold items from your collection previously or traded?
yes, I've traded things. And we're talking about that pinball machine. I have sold that to a friend, and I bought the newer pinball machine and had it signed by the band. So that I still have. But I did have seller's remorse on the original. Now, it went to a good friend who actually had the back glass signed by the original band. And so very proud to say he's got it. He's taking care of it, and it looks amazing. I had a little seller's remorse on that. I think probably I've compartmentalized a bit of all of this. To be honest, I all this was picked up and taken to Jacques last summer, as late as last summer. So he's had it for quite a while. So I've had some time to sort of live with this, but it's definitely bringing up everything again to see it all now laid out in this auction. Uh, but
Well,
I'm
now it's real because it's in preview. So,
Yeah, now it's very
people.
real.
Yeah, so if you've had any separation anxiety, it's only gonna get worse
Yeah.
now as I think one thing I'll advise is not to look at how the bidding's going because
Okay. Yeah.
that is horrendous, watching
Torture.
auctions when you've got that amount of things, and regardless of what you say, everything will have an emotional connection of
Yeah.
some description because they're part of your personal history and your life. So what are some other items that you really want to shout out for people to check out on the auction pages, which are at backstageauctions.com?
Wow. I the belt buckles are there. I mean, if you're a coin era fan, I mean, a little bit of everything. I loved it several years back when you were able to kind of in an easier manner purchase from Amazon Germany, Amazon Japan. This would have been 10 years or so ago, but I was able to I went and collected a lot of the CDs, the German. I love the censored logo. So I went back and collected anything from Kiss Icons, which is a newer release, to Kiss Killers or whatever with the censored logo. I love, again, it's always been about the music. I love the memorabilia, of course, but it all started and still is about the music for me. So there's a thing of, unofficial CDs there. Cause again, I love those shows and listening to those performances before now some of them are coming out officially. Um, but a lot of stuff, reel to reels but if you're an Coin era fan, there's a lot of good stuff. And I really prided myself on condition. I wouldn't get something unless it was like new. The puzzles are sealed. The sleeping bag still has the insert with it. It's a very clean, record player. I'm really was picky about condition. And then another really cool item is a fire hat. Again, I didn't make Firehouse like it's not like my favorite Kiss song or something, though I love it. It's not my favorite Kiss song.
I don't know. You've got a bell, you've got a fire
I know,
extinguisher, and you've got a
and
fireman's helmet.
I've got a fire hat, right? So Paul, and it's all on DVD. So this guy made and replicated a fire hat just like he wore in the '70s, and Paul signs it for him in a meet and greet. And Paul's like, "How about I wear this tonight?" And it was a show in Mohegan Sun. I forget the year, maybe 2011 or 12. I'd have to look again. And he, sure enough, he did Firehouse. He put on the hat. He wore it. There's a photograph of him wearing it. He kicks it back out. The guy was really nervous about, how am I going to get it back? What if somebody else grabs it? And Paul's like, don't worry. My security guy will get it. We'll get it back to you. And sure enough, he did. So, again, I didn't seek out Firehouse themed items, but I do have that fire hat, which is really cool.
That's got a great story to attach to it as well. What
Yeah.
about the set from Unplugged? Because
Yes.
that's coming up to its 30th anniversary this year as
Yeah.
well. I mean, how did you come by that?
So, right. So that was Backstage Auctions, actually. You talked earlier. I mean, I've known Jacques a long time, and I've watched his items and have bid on things from the years past. And he had a lot of that drum head, drumstick, the passes, set list from Unplugged, which that was a special moment for me as a Kiss fan. That was, and so when that opportunity came up, I went for that. So loved having that, and then met the band. And was able to get all of them to sign the set list as well. So, important moment in Kiss's history, and I was really happy to get that. But that was a lot of things that I purchased through Backstage Auctions.
A couple of questions before we wrap up, and let people get on with checking out the auctions. When do they go live?
It'll start April 5th through the week and ending April 13th, but the preview is live now.
Right. As an international touring musician, has that afforded you any opportunities to go hunting for Kiss collectibles in those markets? And how did you kind of approach that when you're on the road?
Honestly, I love days off on the road and hopping into an Uber and being able to hit antique shops. And honestly, I've had fans who know that I'm a Kiss fan bring me things, amazing things. Now, some stuff like that I've held on to. I did a song for the Eric Carr Unfinished Business project. I did drums to a song called Eyes of Love, and Loretta, who I love dearly, gifted me some of his plaques, the plaques that she can have commissioned to be made with his name. So I have Psycho Circus, Unmasked, and plaques. She gifted those to me, for doing my work on that. So things like that and gifts that have been given to me, which have been great, I have kept because those are gifts, and I didn't want to let those go. But yeah, the touring has been wonderful, and I have found mostly some great vinyl pieces, especially internationally, which is great, and not only Kiss, but as you can, other artists that I collect too. But it's pretty amazing, and like I said, I have to have fans that know that I'm a Kiss fan and would appreciate something, and they bring something, gift me something. It just kind of blows me away.
So you are a Kiss fan. This is a question I always have to ask a Kiss fan. What's your favorite Kiss album, John?
Number one it has to be the first one that I got, Kiss Alive. That's my favorite. The honorable mention, though, very close second, is Creatures of the Night.
There's no right or wrong answers with that. That's the great thing about a band with a catalog as vast as Kiss is.
Right.
What flavor of Kool-Aid do you drink? Who's your Kiss guy?
Oh gosh, that's a great. I think Well, yeah, it has to be Peter, right? He's the whole reason that all of this started for me. Peter Criss. I never was able to meet. Unfortunately, I was never able to meet Eric Carr. Would have loved to have met Eric Carr. I've met his dad, and of course Loretta and everything and it's been wonderful to get to know them. I would have loved to have met him, and I wasn't able to. Saw him live several times, and a great drummer, one of my favorites. And of course, Eric Singer's an amazing drummer as well. Great guy. Uh, but I have to say, Peter is my guy. He's the reason this all started for me.
So when you started learning drums, what was that one Peter, bit that you wanted to learn and start playing for yourself?
Oh, it was mimicking the drum solos from Alive and Alive 2, and I think I was doing that even before I had a drum set. I had sticks, and my bedroom was air drum, air guitar, Kiss concerts, and it was playing along to those drum solos and knowing them verbatim, which I still do to this day. I think one of Peter's greatest drum solos to this day is the drum solo from Tokyo, the Tokyo show, that the 77 Tokyo show, which, the first thing I saw of that was the HBO sort of edited version, but the drum solo in that concert is incredible, man. It's still one of my favorites. I know every nuance of it, and I worked to learn that. So video again was a big thing in my life as a collector, and I had, my aunt had the Tokyo show in the early days of VCR, and I watched that incessantly, and I learned that drum solo and the Animalized uncensored concert, MTV, and the Eric Carr stuff, his drum solo. Those were the two big ones for me, and I had to learn them, and I can still air drum the shit out of them to this day.
I know that. I was in a rehearsal studio jamming with a buddy, and he started doing the Eric Carr drum solo from Animalize Alive. Uncensored, and I'm sorry, I just had a grin on my face because he was nailing it, and it is just so fun. Music is fun, isn't it?
It is fun. It's fun to play, and it's tricky, man. A lot of it, Peter's feel and the things that he played, just so unique to him. But I think he was a great drummer. I think for me to kind of get started with, some of his stuff I wouldn't call it simplistic at all. But it was just a great way to learn feel and to have a slight swing to it and groove, and very unique. And I think it helped me a lot unknowingly, just being my first drummer, to really study in the every detail. And I think he was a good one for me to get started with.
All right, last bit's all you get the floor. What would you like to tell folk about this auction and then about yourself and what you're up to?
Yeah, so if you're so inclined and you're a Kiss collector, go check out the auction. Again, it starts, the preview's up now, and it'll begin Saturday, April 5th, and will run through April 13th. And Seether is about to hit the road. We're going to go out. The tour starts May 2nd. And we'll be touring with Mammoth and POD and doing a run all through the month of May. We had a new album, The Surface Seems So Far, that came out last September, and we did a fall run, and now we'll do the spring run. We'll do a tour again then in fall. We'll take the summer off, but we'll be back in fall. So Seether touring for a bit this year, and then plans for the next album are for beginning in 26 next year.
Well, John Humphrey, all the best for heading out on the road, and all the best for a great result with Backstage Auctions.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we've broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.